Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 583 on Wednesday, the 19th of June, 2024. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. And this week we'll be asking, trade war, what is it good for?
I really should start checking these things before we start, shouldn't I?
In new car news, we see one brand has a singular definition of uniqueness. And in points of interest, the and finally lets us see one car collection in situ before it goes. But first, we have quite a bit to follow up this week, actually, almost as much as news. And I'm going to start with the one that has grabbed some more headlines than anything else, and that is the shock news that the EU is putting in really quite hefty interim tariffs, must get this wording correct, interim tariffs from the 1st of July on Chinese-made electric vehicles. Depending on how much cooperation the company gave the investigators is the key factor of how large the tariffs are. And these go on top of the existing tariff or bringing in a car from China as it is.
Yes. The existing tariff, by the way, was 10% as it stood.
Yep.
And these new tariffs on top of that will range from 17 to 38.1%. MG is in the 38.1%, which the Commission has considered not to have cooperated with the probe. Geely will be charged an additional 20%, BYD 17.4%, varying quite a lot.
Yeah, Tesla is expected to get about 20%, but they asked to be given a separate treatment, whatever that meant. Also, this is expected to hit the joint ventures with European car makers as well.
Yes.
Hence, some German politicians and the German car industry went, well, no. Whereas the French politicians, when they weren't worrying about an election, and the French car makers went, it's fine.
Locking each other out of the party headquarters, yes.
Yes.
Went, of course, this is not a problem. Huh? Many of the German EVs built in China and then brought back to Europe. Frankly, this is all the German car industry's fault.
And the European Commission.
And the European Commission, but as much as anything else, it was all triggered by the German car industry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I got this wrong. It's July the 4th, not July the 1st.
All right. I have a limited amount of sympathy with the German car manufacturers in this one, I'm afraid.
I have zero sympathy with the industry of Europe. I have zero sympathy with the politicians who, in two different ways, have created this mess.
Yes. But obviously it's going to be a problem for the car buyer. Because the same politicians are not going to back down on zero-emission vehicle mandates. Manufacturers can't just magic factories from China to Europe. The smarter Chinese ones are already palling up and trying to build. I mean, we've talked about Italy and before. That's why they and Stellantis are in quite such a strop with each other.
Yes. Well, there's going to be two articles linked, both from Politico. The first one is going to explain exactly what's going on with the tariffs, who, why, and various comments and reactions to that from different sides of all this. Then there is also a second article, which is titled, Europe Gives China a Taste of Its Own Trade Medicine, which I found quite funny and actually emphasizes what we've been saying for several years now about why the situation is as it is and what Western policies, both political and industrial, have done to create this whole situation, and they've helped enable it. And now they're all having a big panic about it.
The one that's knocking us slightly on that one is the people who disagreed with us, actively disagreed with us, whenever we were talking about this a few years ago, are now appearing on international news shows as if they've been saying it all along. Yeah, what do we know? Huh?
But that's where our very discerning listeners know better.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'm preaching to the perverted on them.
Absolutely. Do you want to take us to America, where now things that are absolutely stationary can be seen?
Yes, well, this is a wonderful thing, really, because one of the things you notice when you come to America is that something America is very good at is stringing stuff up on wooden poles along the side of the streets.
It's not a rare event.
No. Stuff is generally strung up along the side of the streets instead of neatly buried under the ground, as you would find in Europe.
Okay.
It's really good that after, 10 years on the road, Waymo's fleet of vehicles can now recognise telegraph poles.
Well, they can recognise them and know not to hit them.
Yes. Oh, sorry. They recognised them before.
Yes.
But they still didn't know not to hit them, and therefore they have been continuing to hit them. One of the most recent ones was on the 21st of May in an alley in Phoenix. This sounds like a really dodgy story. Empty Waymo pulled over to pick up a passenger and whacked into a telegraph pole at about 8 miles an hour. Waymo's description of the event generally matches the news descriptions of the mild crash, says the Register. But it's okay because a software update will ensure that cars no longer bash into, I like the way it says, will no longer bash into the poles or that pole in particular. So that pole has a state of absence. This kind of stuff, the cars are trying to deal with these real outliers that you meet every day in this kind of situation where it doesn't necessarily recognize something which has been around it all the time. It's going well. There, yet another fun one. At least it didn't run over the telegraph pole and drag it along the street and then reverse back over it again.
Yeah, because they're one of the good guys, don't forget. They're one of the good guys, Waymo. They do it properly. Yeah, like you said, 10 years. And I'm very bored of hearing how it was something else, somebody else's fault, effectively, is how it's been couched. It's incorrect maps and a software issue, not because our whole system is rubbish and a decade after this has been on the road.
Yeah, I think you're being a little bit strong there. But
no,
it's not as if it's
a telegraph pole, for crying out loud. It doesn't move.
It might have been wearing camouflage.
What, brown wood? In an alleyway.
With disguised to look like a tree.
Yeah. I have less and less sympathy for the way the industry is trying to fob off any incident there is, as though, oh no, it's an edge case, it's a rare thing. No, it's not. That's not an edge case.
It's going to be like all of these things, like painting and decorating, or any of these things, where you get the broad swathes of the wall and the stuff done, but getting the details that make it right takes at least as long as covering the majority of the ground, and it's taken them 10 years to cover them, and not just Waymo, by the way. But the autonomous driving stuff, it's taken it 10 years to cover the walls. This kind of thing is going to continue for a long, long time. And this is why level 4, level 5, level 3, and any other derivation thereof that people may make up for marketing purposes is not very likely for a long time still. And we'll see that we've seen that all the sort of the hype has cooled on all of this. It's all moved on to AI, and even now the hype is cooling on that.
What the problem is, and what doesn't get explained, and is what the industry hopes is never mentioned, is whenever you update the software, you have to retrain the whole thing. They are not continually learning. They are stuck in, the car gets a sandboxed set of rules that it is working to. And then you have to start again. And you have to hope that what you've updated it with doesn't ruin something that's already in there.
The thing is that what it can't do is then go, oh, hang on, this new rule you've given me 3 days ago, I recognize where that would have been a useful rule. It can't do that like we automatically do.
Yeah.
If we learn something new, we go, oh, last week I could have done that instead. It doesn't do that because there's no context, there's no sort of regression or learning based on previous experience given something you've been given now. And that, of course, is one of the reasons why artificial intelligence isn't.
No. And why it does not fulfill safety critical software criteria.
No, because you don't know what you're about to break. Anyway, should we move on? Because we could moan about this for hours and hours
really
and
could
hours.
Today.
He's grumpy.
But I'm going to take us on to more, well, I feel this is positive news. This is more follow-up, and it's from JLR. And they are actually investing another £1 million, this time to help the police deal with, well, the title says car theft epidemic. I don't think that's quite right.
I think that's overdoing it a bit.
Yes. They are going to allocate more resources within the company to help police whenever there has been a stolen vehicle. But also they are going to pay for a new police unit, which is going to gather intelligence on high-risk car theft areas to help try and break up, obviously, some of these gangs and networks that are used to try and get the cars out of the UK invariably, or the parts certainly, and shipped off. I'm not sure what more JLR really can do on this. They're already updating older stuff. Their latest models are according to the stats from the police and insurance, incredibly well protected, looking at how many have actually been unauthorizedly taken away from the owner's property or wherever they were. They are taking this serious. This is not PR fluff. We want to look like we're addressing a problem. They are throwing quite a lot of money at this now.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a good throwing of money. I guess it is kind of. Because this one here is interesting. So whilst it's the anti-criminal gang unit sponsored by JLR, then...
do they all have the blue... They've got blue uniforms with a white stab vest underneath.
White stab vest and white trainers.
Yeah.
White tennis shoes. Yeah. But yes. Move over, we're coming in.
The House of Policing Brands.
Entirely your own fault. You can have to edit this out. But it will also benefit other manufacturers too.
Yes. Because we need to remember, JLR are not the only ones who have their cars nicked.
No, I know. And it's sometimes it does feel like, I mean, this is really aiming at chop shops, isn't it?
It's the chop shops and those organising the logistics. So there's going to be a lot of port work because they've been doing some trial areas and they've been catching them on the ports in containers ready to go off.
I'm sure that Porsche will be quite happy with this sort of setup as well.
Yeah.
Next up, FISKER. Totally fisked. Hey, we've got YouTube shorts to populate each week. FISKER has filed for bankruptcy after rescue talks have collapsed. According to this article, the American car maker will sell off its assets to repay creditors who failed to raise crucial funding. It lost $463.6 million during the fourth quarter of 2023. And that was before pausing production of the Ocean in March, halting all the development of the Pear hatchback. Yes, and of course, Nissan. Well, a large auto manufacturer
that was heavily rumoured to be
Nissan also collapsed as well. That would have given them $400 million and access to a platform for the Alaska pickup truck that was planned.
But if you read last week's lunchtime read, which we recommended, which was the story behind FISKER, I can see why any large automotive manufacturer would then go, you know what, actually, thanks, but no.
Often that kind of thing comes down to whether or not the founder and the existing management insist on staying on.
Okay.
Especially someone like Nissan might have decided, well, no, actually, we don't want you to stay on.
Yes, understandable.
Yeah. FISKER said it will ensure that it continues to pay employees' wages, certain customer programs, and other vendors. One thing about FISKER, of course, it doesn't have its own factory, so it's not actually asset rich.
I did see that the EV credit scheme that came with the cars, that was actually the charging company involved in that had put out a statement saying they will not be honouring FISKER's deal with its customers because they had not been paid yet.
It's a bit rough on the customers and might sort of leave a bad taste in customers' mouths if they want other EVs.
But what is the charging company supposed to do? They can't give stuff for free, can they? They will be so low on the list of Chapter 11 people to be covered. And as you say, they've got no assets. I mean, the name is now worthless. It's gone belly up twice.
Yes, I wonder who will give him his third chance.
Oh, I dread to think. Not with a large poll.
I don't think so. I think reputation precedes you by that point.
It should do. Right, I'm going to take us into new news. And I'm going to start with the headline from Garage Wire. MI5 seeks tech wizard for real-life Bond cars. They have now got a job advert out there. This is MI5's operational and surveillance department in West London for a vehicle technician, and they want someone who can do the basic servicing all the way through to complex repairs such as rebuilding transmissions. The wage, if you are interested, is a range between $35,952 to $40,629 annually. Don't forget, you are based in West London.
Good luck.
But don't worry, you will get a comprehensive benefits package, along with, and I'm quoting heavily here from Alex Tudor Lane writing in Garage Wire, because I just think it's wonderful. Comprehensive package alongside the thrill of working in such a prestigious organisation, 25 days annual leave, interest-free season ticket loan for commuting, a pension scheme, a cycle to work scheme, and even an on-site gym, as Alex says, to keep you fit for duty. Also, I would imagine you need to have really good interpersonal skills for telling someone or requesting gently someone who could possibly kill you with their pinky, could you be a bit more mechanically sympathetic with the car next time?
Yeah.
That does not seem a very big wage for that area and what they want.
It'll be fine, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. If you can wield a spanner well and you are around the area and this interests you, do click on the link in the show notes, because at the bottom of the article there is another link that will take you directly to apply for the job.
Yes. I'm surprised it hasn't been outsourced to Babcock, as I've said before. Everybody else seems to have. Everything else in defence is outsourced to Babcock.
Alan, would you like to take us to Dundee?
No. It's Dundee. What do you expect? Dundee, however, does have an outpost of the Victoria and Albert Museum. And what they've done there is they have fitted Europe's first fully retractable EV chargers outside the V&A Museum. So these have been installed by a company called Urban Fox. And what they do is they retract right down into the pavement, into a sort of black panel on the pavement. You need an app in order to summon them. Every time I say summon them, I feel I should wave my arm up in the air like something out of Harry Potter.
Yes. And
to make them appear out of the pavement so that you can then use them. The aim is that it cuts down on the amount of car park side clutter that there is in the area around the V&A Museum. It looks really smart, even when it's up. It's sort of nice stainless steel, nicely branded.
Yep.
Good looking thing. I do have a couple of questions about it, though. The first is, if you can't see the charger, doesn't that make it harder for people to know what's a charging spot and what's a parking spot, so you are more likely to get iced?
Possibly.
Even though there are little signs, nobody ever really notices the little signs.
I don't know what's on the floor that's under the car, because there is, in the picture that's linked in the show notes, there is a car that's parked in a bay that can access this.
Mm-hmm. And then the reflection of said car and charger, which is why on the right-hand side it's reversed, which I couldn't work out either. Confused me for until about 3 minutes ago. The other one is that you need an app in order to do the summoning. And I do wonder, one of the things is that you're meant to be able to use EV charging points without having an app. Mm. So maybe that you need to summon with the app, and then if you choose to pay through the app, you can pay through the app. But at that point, you can then use contactless, which seems pointless.
I'm looking at this picture a bit closely now. There's a QR code, so maybe you can use the QR code to summon it to rise up, and then you can use your contactless.
Maybe. That seems...
It is illegal to not have a contactless payment.
Yeah, to actually need an app for access to any of these things.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe if we were cunning, we would ask friend of the show, Matt Allen, who wrote this article, and EV powered. But we're not that organised, really, are we?
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. I like the idea. I think particularly outside of a car park area. Oh, here it's quite good because it is beside an architectural significant building. So it doesn't ruin the look of the architecturally significant building from the outside when they're not in use. But I think the normal car parks, actually just a stationary one, is a good idea. But I can see that in this sort of situation where maybe if there's events and things, you want to be able to fold everything away, then that actually would work really quite well.
Yeah, I like the concept. The details are where the devil is, etc. As usual.
Probably, yeah. I think I'd love to use one to try it actually, and just see if my fears are unfounded or otherwise.
Yeah, hopefully they are. Hopefully people have thought that through. But as we've seen with other stuff, that is not always the case, shall we say?
It looks realistic. It looks rugged. It looks all these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that there's been some thought put into that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's going to be 18 of these around Dundee. They're 7 kilowatt chargers. So they are obviously the slower versions or the slower end of the charging thing. I love the concept of it.
Yeah, same here. Take us to a container in Surrey.
Yes, Surrey County Council has installed, and I'm quoting the headline from currentnews.co.uk, Surrey County Council installs pop-up solar car park and EV charging hub because prefab is not sexy anymore.
No, it's a container. It's a container.
It is a 40-foot container that they have enabled it to slide the doors in and out into the end where the charging bays are, and it has a solar panel-filled roof which it uses to charge a battery that can be used to help charge 12 EVs at 7, 11, or 22 kilowatt simultaneously, which will apparently reduce the reliance on expensive ultra-rapid charging points. However, this is also plugged into the mains. I am struggling to see how they are going to be able to move this around easily and quickly.
Yes, they make a big deal about being able to shift it from place to place. And it's like, that's great, yeah. But the great big power socket on the bottom of it.
You still have the issue.
Yeah.
You've still got the issue which you have now, which is we need power somewhere. I like that they are reusing a container. I like that. I like that it's solar roofed. I like they've got a battery. We've said this before many times. I am surprised at one of the installations.
What? You'd have a solar EV hub at Regmore Hospital in Inverness? Yes.
Yes. I love the optimism.
Mm-hmm. I guess when it comes to moving it around, if you've got 3 or 4 locations it might be useful in, depending on events or these kind of things, then you can shift it for those and you can put it in place then.
If you can set up the infrastructure beforehand, it's brilliant.
It's called a Papilio 3, by the way, which sounds like some kind of awkward and uncomfortable test. They're renting it from 3TI, which is on rental infrastructure companies.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting to see how that goes on. I love the sort of modular stuff. It's always cool.
Yeah. So we finally stumbling and tripping our way towards the end of the first part of the show.
It is Guilt Minute, quick break in the show where we ask for a tad of financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. If you feel the Motoring Podcast is worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. Different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, and we do completely understand, you can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all of that, some of you do, so thank you very much. Then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues.
Thank you, everyone that does. Very kind of you.
It is.
Right, new car news. Alan, do you want to take us onto a radical and unique car?
Okay, there's a difference of opinion here on this one. It is the new Grande Panda. The current generation of Panda that we're used to will continue until 2027 as the Pandina. I think I've got that right. It's either Pandino or Pandino. It's Pandina. Yes, Pandina. This new Grande Panda is bigger than... Once you say that once, you can't say it. Can't stop saying it. Is much bigger than the traditional one. It is that little bit chunky. In fact, one might not be surprised to discover it's the same kind of size as the Citroën C3, which shares the platform. This, in many of our minds...
Just the platform?
Shut up. This, in many of our minds, is the best looking of the trio. It has, depending on whose eyes you're looking at it through, it has the coolest detail. I think we can say that. I mean, it seems to have stolen the headlamps and tail lamps from the new Hyundai Santa Fe, which is not a bad thing, in rather funky LED layouts and that sort of stuff. It has Panda stamped into the doors. Into the side doors, and I think into the boot lid as well.
Fiat.
It's a Fiat in the boot lid.
Yeah. And
it's got some really nice detailing. Some may say that it has a hint of the original Giugiaro Panda, mostly in the rake of the rear window, the slight sort of squareness around the side windows and the glass house, the slight rake where it sits slightly higher at the rear than at the front, and the slightly boxy front. And also the rear spoiler above that window. It has been commented that it looks like this was the vehicle that the platform was originally intended for, and that it is originally this platform for this car, and that the others are the rebadges of the Panda platform. It is tipped to start at around £15,000. And for that kind of price, it will come as either a hybrid or a petrol power or an EV. EV is far more expensive.
Yes, the 124-mile EV.
EV,
like
yeah.
Like the C3 or EC3.
EC3. There's also a mild hybrid 99 horsepower, 1.2 litre 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine, which no doubt will be the one at the more budget-minded end of the scale. The minimalist, rugged look reflects Fiat's new brand values of strengthened uniqueness and sets the tone for the design of all upcoming models in the Panda family, including the pixel-styled headlamps, which were supposedly inspired by the windows of Fiat's old Lingotto factory in Turin. It's a pretentious twiddle.
I love the uniqueness of sharing the platform, the technology, the body panels on the side, the roof, the bonnet, and where they have actually, to be fair, changed the back end and the front end. Unique.
And it's a changed back end, front end, the door skins, all these kinds of things. Sorry, somebody
the door
here...
skins are not changed.
They are. They've got Ruddy Panda written down them. Somebody here is being incredible.
That's not changed. Someone's just stamped Panda in the side of a Citroen C3
but
one.
that's different. That is different from the C3. It's not interchangeable, therefore it is different. Stop being so obstinate on this.
And I have to make this clear because I think people have got confused when I've mentioned this on Twitter. I do not object to the looks of this. I do not object to the looks of the C3. No, I am fascinated with what Stellantis is doing and how much they are sharing of parts and body panels, because we know platforms are shared. We know the technology inside is shared.
Agreed.
And we know things like seats are shared. Them doing this, but still keeping Fiat a Fiat, the Citroen a Citroen, and the Vauxhall a Vauxhall, or Opel. And it is fascinating to watch if they are going to be able to carry this off. It seems to have happened at the car size above.
Mm.
Will it continue at the lower end where they have less margin and wiggle room to fiddle with things?
What does make me laugh here, by the way, is they've also managed to keep a Peugeot. The irony being that the Peugeot and the Renault in the same thing look far more alike than any of the other vehicles in the Stellantis family.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But I think it's, let's, I think it's good that it doesn't just look like another fat 500.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the thing that we really do need to celebrate here. It doesn't look like a fat 500. It's taking another design icon. There is inspiration from that, despite what Grumpy Features says. But it's...
Oh, yeah, I can see that they've done touches of it.
And it's not overly generic either.
No. They have done a cracking job, to be fair, to date. All the brands have done a cracking job of making their car look different enough.
Yes.
It's not like you can just take a badge off one and stick it on another. The front ends are very different. The back ends are usually very different as well. And I like I say, I really like all the designs. I am just very curious if it ever blows up in Stellantis' face, where people go, hang on, why am I paying more for this than that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. By the way, it's expected to start around £22,000 as an EV. No indications about hot bath versions, but there have been hints about a four-wheel drive version. Anyway, shall we move on to something that's significantly more generic looking, Andrew?
Yes, let's go to the Smart Hash 5. And this is an electric SUV. Yes, another one, everybody. Where the top of the range will pack up to 637 brake horsepower, thanks to a dual motor. I don't understand. I mean, people already commented that the 1 and the 3 were ridiculously overpowered for what they were. This is going to be the same size as a Peugeot 5008 as well. So this is not a small SUV. And it is expected to hit 62 mile an hour from stationary in well under 3 seconds.
Why?
That is far too much. And people who are... Cut that in half and give me more range, and I'll be a very happy bunny.
The thing is, you don't have to drive it at that speed.
No, of course not. But that will still catch a lot of people out because of the immediateness of an EV that we all know, which is why you don't need to pack as much power in them. There isn't many details out on this because this is some information that has been published on China's Ministry of Technology, or by China's Ministry of Technology, showing some of the design of it, which it looks a bit like generic AI SUV, although it's smarter than most of those. Oh, yeah, I didn't even think of that. Oh. I don't object to the look on this one.
No.
Where I just think some prompt has been used and gone, create me an SUV for Europe, please. I don't think that's happened here. That was expected to come to the UK in 2025, priced around £35,000. But that was prior to our very first follow-up story and the tariffs now being imposed by the EU. And we don't know whether that actually changes, whether it's coming to the UK because the UK has not responded. This seems to be busy with something else politically at the moment. I'm not sure what it is.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure we'll just do what Europe's doing because, that makes Brexit so worthwhile.
We're going to. We are going to. We don't know whether that is, but they are part owned by Geely and Mercedes. So therefore, it will be towards the lower end of any tariff, about the 20%.
True. A couple of things worth noting technology-wise. There will be a dual motor option for all-wheel drive. Vehicles that aren't all-wheel drive will be rear-wheel drive. They will use lithium iron phosphate batteries instead of the conventional lithium-ion batteries, which the four-wheel drive models are expected to do. Confirmed that the Hash 5 will be available more than 100 kilowatt hours of battery in its longest form, and that will have an 800-volt architecture for 10 to 80% charges in 15 minutes or so, environmental conditions and charges allowing. There's a couple of interesting things in there, as well as ridiculous, unnecessary speeds.
Yeah. Okay, Alan, do you want to take us to Alpine?
Yes, Alpine A290 hot hatch, 215 horsepower. This is far more like the kind of thing, and 236 miles of range from the warmed-over Renault 5. It looks great. There is precedent for this kind of thing in the late 70s, early 80s. Alpine did a version of the Renault 5.
Was that not just a trim level? It was a trim level that they had done things to.
Yes, it was.
Because that's really what I feel this should be. I understand why not, and you'll go on to explain.
Will I? Okay,
that's what I really feel.
I don't care, as long as it has those kind of petal seats that the originals had in the higher spec. the Renault 5s and the Renault 5 Gordinis and these things, as well as some cool wheels, then I'm on for a winner. Sadly, the wheels are a bit generic. I think this is great. I mean, obviously it's being shown in that sort of Diet blue that Alpine has, which is particularly nice color. Mm-hmm. It's a hot hatch, warmed over version of the Renault 5. The lights are a little bit squintier to make it more Alpine-like. It has little pseudo spotlights with a little X in them for some reason.
Because that's what old Alpine rally cars did.
Yes. But it's generally very cool. Would I own one? Yes. Would I buy one? Don't know. Obviously, it has all sorts of fun things, like it has bespoke driving sounds based on the natural harmonics of the electric motor.
To be fair to Alpine, they have actually done a fair amount of engineering on this. This is not just a Renault 5 that they've put a fancy skirt on and made it a little bit more powerful.
The steering wheel has a big red overtake button, which gives you maximum torque and power for 10 seconds. There's lots of fun stuff in here as well.
Yeah, they've made the track wider, and they have concentrated a lot on making it lighter. So it is significantly lighter.
Yeah. They've also done a bunch of gamification as well. In the telematics program, you should see the eyes rolling, everyone, which has three main features. There's live data, coaching, and challenges. Live data displays information relating to the car's agility, power, endurance, and lap times if you're on a circuit. Coaching is designed to help drivers improve their skills, and that kind of thing I really like. Giving advice on braking and drifting, for example. And then there's also a video game style challenges mode, which gives drivers a number of tasks to complete based on agility, power, and endurance. With a new challenge unlocked every time one is achieved. I love it. I think it's great. It's set to be priced from around £36,000 when it goes on sale towards the end of the year. First delivery is due to take place in early 2025. Like it.
Alpine see this as the gateway car to their brand.
And why not?
And they are, I think there's a lot rests on this for future brand, loyal brand buyers.
36 grand on the PCP? Sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
When you compare it to that 600 and whatever thousand bajillionty brake horsepower that the Smart Hash
I'd rather have this. Rather have this.
I know. Yes, all day. But
yeah, but it's not a surprise that I would prefer that, isn't it?
No. I think most of us and most of us listening to this would say the same.
Yeah. JLR again now, I think.
Yes. Well, a month after a Chery executive accidentally let it slip that they would be supplying platforms to JLR, which was hotly denied immediately afterwards, news comes from JLR and Chery that they will be using platforms from the Chinese manufacturer to underpin future models of the electric vehicles and a different platform for the ICE and hybrid models.
You know how Autocar for years had new small Jag was always like every second front page to the stage where it's become a joke. Do you think that in future it'll become new cheery little Jag? Will be the latest one if it's based on one of these platforms.
Well, I haven't included it this week, but I did see this morning when I woke up early and had a conversation with Geely's PR chappie on Twitter that Chery have announced that they will be doing a joint venture and launching in China the Freelander brand that will start initially exclusively in China, but then will be exported across the world.
Freelander brand?
Yes,
Okay.
This is a totally new brand that is not going to be in the UK.
So it's not a Discovery Sport.
No, because that's why we got into a conversation. Because I said, no, it'd just be a Discovery Sport. Nope, here's the press release. I don't know what they're playing at. But the interesting thing here is that these are both modular platforms. I've gone off topic slightly, but
Sorry.
Back to talking about JLRs in the UK. They're going to be using a specific EV modular platform that will underpin, obviously, all the electrics. And then there is a separate platform that deals with plug-in hybrids, and ICE side of things.
Interesting. Not a lot of data, really, and information. We shall see what happens.
Because we don't know any information yet on what the electric Range Rover is going to be.
No.
We still don't know. And that's supposed to be out in anything from 6 months' time.
Remember, they've hired a lot of people with experience in electric luxury vehicles. So I'll be interested to see what happens there, and it may be that some stuff has been revised because maybe it wasn't quite right.
Yeah. Well, don't forget they did can that saloon.
They did. They canned the XJ ages ago.
Weeks before it was supposed to be out.
Yeah.
They have had to go back to the drawing board.
Yes.
Again, another sign which gives me a little bit of confidence. Although we have mocked JLR with things like the uniforms for the directors,
for everyone,
and stuff like that. Some of the business decisions for the car side of things seem to be the right sort of decisions.
I was thinking this the other day, right? Around here, and this is me going off on a tangent again, around here just generally, there has been a massive uptick in the number of new Range Rover products that I have seen on the road.
Okay.
The Range Rover Sport, even the full fat Range Rover, seems to be really quite popular here. Far more Defenders than obviously there were 2 years ago. There's just a significant, and it's in the last 6 months, I've noticed a significant rise in the number of new JLR products on the road around this part of Massachusetts. I don't know if that's reflected everywhere, but there seems to have been just a surge, just a step change in just the number that I notice. I have no idea if it's confirmation bias or anything. It's completely unscientific. But I keep an eye out for these kinds of things generally, and there just seems to have been quite a key step and change there. Just noticing far more of them around.
That's good. That's good. Anyway, do you want to take us on to Volvo?
Yeah, last kind of news story of the week. Volvo has recalled 72,000 EX30s over its, which is the entire production run so far, by the way. After identifying a software problem that could render its main information display useless. I think some of the owners have been identifying this software problem quite a lot, from what I've heard on the grapevine and people who've spoken to us. Software problems, it can be slight inconvenience. It is not a slight inconvenience when absolutely everything works through the touchscreen, which is the core of the software problem.
Yes.
Even down to, adjusting door mirrors because, switches are evil. Then, let's see what's happening with that.
Volvo's getting in touch with the owners, and they say this can be fixed with an over-the-air update.
Provided the screen's working well enough that you can actually download and install the update, I guess. Over-the-air updates are quite wonderful, really. Because essentially your customers have to do all the work to fix all your mistakes. Which is quite... The thing is, if my mum had one of these, right? I don't know how I would talk her through performing an over-the-air update on her car. It's bad enough in a flipping phone. It's all changed. I hate that it's changed again. I don't know.
But it also, and I was reading an article somewhere, and it was definitely the vibe of the conversation of the last Looking Out podcast, where they were talking about software-defined vehicles, that it has caused... Well, they weren't saying this directly, but it made me think about how it has enabled a very lazy way of thinking, which is, we'll fix it later. A bit like the early days of this podcast.
You've got to fix it in
I'll
post.
fix it in post.
Or indeed
and
this
you
week.
know what? It's actually better to have it right the first time than to keep going back. It costs you less and everything. Things like Carriad have found that out the very hard way.
Yeah.
Get it right the first time, even if you have to delay, because the reputational damage, let alone the financial damage, is horrific. Particularly if you are perceived as taking these first steps into software, even though there's been software in cars for years.
Software is hard. Today is a public holiday in the US as we're recording this. It is Juneteenth. I forgot to put my out of office on yesterday. So I went to do it this morning from my iPad using Microsoft's own Office 360 app thing. And it's a chunky pile of junk. And you'd think that Microsoft would be quite good at this by now. They've been doing it for a while. Why, when you have an entire iPad screen, did I have to type in my out-of-office message in something 1.25 inches tall?
It's because companies have been allowed to get away with giving us rubbish products.
Yeah, I work for a software company, so I should really just stop grumbling at the minute. But it really annoys me when everyone complains about something in hours, and then you look at Microsoft and it's just like, but this is a pile of poop.
Yeah.
And it's the same issue here. You know, Microsoft has been doing this for a long time. They still release completely pants software.
Totally messes up people's networks.
Yeah, so that it doesn't surprise me that this is happening in cars as well. Still. And you go, still. But previous car software was very, very simple. And now all of a sudden it's a step change in complexity. And of course, with more complex software, bigger glitches creep in because it's just so darn hard to test it all.
I've heard feedback from a very recent, very large car cybersecurity conference that was in Europe. And some of the stuff that I can't repeat absolutely terrifies me. And it's going to be much, much worse.
It terrifies you, but did it surprise you?
Not really.
No.
Because I've been looking at this. We've been looking at this for, we've been talking about it for 8.5 years. We've both been looking at it for a decade, at least.
Yeah.
It's just, the car companies need to slow down. Don't take the lessons of move fast, break things from Silicon Valley. Stop that.
It's just the worst.
Anyway, come on, let's again.
We're grumpy. It's just
like
as well.
We don't, autonomous vehicles. We could
Can
spend.
you tell that we don't have a hard
hours.
deadline today as well? That's just killing it here. I'm not delivering a training course or anything. Speaking of interiors, though, designer's mood board. Skoda has appointed the designer from NIO to shape new minimalist interiors. So that sounds good. Next generation Toyota cabins will be shaped by Chan Park. It says he's from NIO. That's where he's coming from right now. He's a graduate of the Royal College of Art. He spent time at Pininfarina, Kia, Mercedes-Benz, and Audi before joining NIO in 2021. That should be interesting.
Yeah, his boss is moving on, Peter Ola, who is going to lead Skoda's One Design identity strategy.
He's either being promoted or sideways. I'm not quite sure which.
Well, I think that sounds like a promotion.
It does sound like it.
Because it's...
Yeah.
But you were talking about the minimalist interiors and all that. Well, one of the things I'm really interested to try, and I've not had an opportunity yet, and this is grumpy me saying this, I am fascinated to try their smart dials that you can set up to do certain aspects. They haven't gone, right, we're just going to throw dials in everywhere, and they haven't gone, we're just taking them all out. They're trying to find a happy medium between where they can minimize their costs, but still give at least the impression to us drivers and owners that we have some control over these things. Plus, we do like dial switches, all that sort of stuff. We as humans, we like the tactile touching. You don't get that from a screen.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's just a couple of things, just to like quickly turn up or turn down the volume.
Yeah.
These kind of things. That's. I mean, I think about, okay, so what do I actually press on my dashboard in my car? And generally, it's the volume button. Climate control and stuff, I set that when I bought the car. I have since left it. Occasionally, I turn the rear AC on if I've got people in the back. Blech.
Yeah, Alan's two-seater, large SUV.
Mr. Nobody in the back then buys a 7-seater, yeah.
I'll just take the seats out.
Yeah. It's harder than you think, sadly. Nowhere to store them. But then that's mostly it, other than CarPlay type stuff. But whenever you need to hit the button to fold the wing mirrors when I'm parked or unfold them or whatever, then they're just there. Or the other one is the setting for when you put it into reverse and the wing mirrors tilt down. You don't always want it to do that. I had to reverse out of a space in the direction of a busy road the other day. And I was able to just whack the little button that stops it doing that.
Okay.
And then the mirrors stayed up so I could see if there were oncoming cars rather than having to rely on the camera or the beepers. There's times just when I need it, there's only 5 or 6 buttons I have to press really. But when I need to press the button, it's because I need to do something quickly.
Yeah. But I am going to be fascinated how Park brings his recent designs, experience and knowledge to Skoda, because one, Neo is obviously a much more premium end of the market to a Skoda, but also how Neos are so technologically heavy and they use things like the voice-operated control stuff and things like that.
But remember that kind of stuff doesn't come from the designer. That kind of stuff comes from marketing. It comes from management, those kind of requirements, and the design has to work within it.
Yeah, because of it, he could then create the interiors. We'll now see whether, the chicken egg thing, really, how much of that goes into Skoda's, or whether actually he was fighting against it, but wasn't able to do anything else.
Or if he wants to do this, is he fighting against what CARIAD is able to do? Because remember, Skoda, part of Volkswagen. So there's that too. Don't, just because he's come up with stuff like that in the past and implemented it, doesn't mean that it's just him. It requires the entire system to be able to implement and develop.
Absolutely.
Develop and exhibit the capability.
Well done for working on your day off.
Thank you. It's your fault.
Okay, I'm going to take us to points of interest now. We've finally reached that part of the show, and I will start with a lunchtime read/watch from the Autopian, where they have information on a conversation that Bob Lutz, who is, if you're not aware, is a titan, I think is an understatement really, of the US automotive world. He has led all big three.
It's kind of funny. There is also the Classic Car Club Manhattan video of the event and of the sort of conversation with him. It's an hour and 20 minutes, so it might be a sort of evening or whatever, but I haven't watched all of it, but it's really good. He starts off basically trying to work out what positions he had at BMW, Chrysler, GM, Ford, the sort of executive vice honorary chairman of stuff, and that's how he starts. And he's telling off the interviewer. He said, "Look, we only had this conversation 5 minutes ago, and I'm the one who's meant to have the problem with my short-term memory these days." He's lost none of his fire. It's really good. The cars are cool, and the man is interesting.
And some of his views on today's industry are interesting. And it also ties in with what we were saying about the software-defined vehicles and the apparent thought and approach that the car companies seem to be taking at the moment as an industry.
Most of all, he's saying there aren't nearly enough car enthusiasts at the top of car companies anymore, and that's starting to really reflect.
No, because I thought that was interesting where he does talk about the margins against a car person and how so many of these people sold white goods. And you sort of sit there and you go, how many cars are not white goods these days? There was a definite period. I think some of that's changing, particularly in the more mainstream. I can see that design flair and thought is going into those. Go back to Stellantis. Each of the brands there is definite thought going into each of those cars, even though they are sharing so much stuff.
Yeah.
And that gives me a little bit of hope. But then you look at some business decisions and some ideas with technology, and I then stop being optimistic massively.
There's a bit of a bias. Sometimes the sort of marketers get the upper hand, other times the designers and the engineers and the car folk get the upper hand. And, I know that everything coming out now is a new small electric SUV as a matter of necessity.
Yeah, it is.
Rather than as a matter of choice. Now, everybody's grumping about this. Sorry, it really pees me off when people do that. And it's just like they've got no choice.
No.
Regulations mean people have to actually do stuff that they don't necessarily want to do.
Or can afford in any other way.
Yeah. Oh, they need to do this dull stuff to be able to have the interesting ones that you get all excited about, but then don't buy new because you go, oh, it's too expensive. I'm going to wait till it's used. I'm sorry, I should stop narking.
Or even just to exist long enough to be able to do something interesting.
Totally. Anyway, move on. But
it's a fantastic article, and the video,
so good.
Do watch it, because he is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. List of the week now, Andrew.
Classic and Sports Cars has come out with a slideshow of 22 cars that are 25 in 2024. Oh, disappointingly, they didn't say 23 cars.
I know, you think they did. Yeah, I think they would have worked that one out.
Yeah.
Obviously, 25 years is an important milestone, partly because it's a quarter century, but also because it then means that things can be imported into the US of A. Not that everything here is from outside the US of A, but there's an interesting mix.
Anything?
Yeah. Do you know what? Yes. Well, yes, of course there's one, right? Toyota Yaris is 25 years old, but I think we'll take that one as a given, shall we? Mark 1
That's
Toyota
a drink,
Yaris.
Ladies and gentlemen, because I didn't put this in the show order, and I didn't line him up to pick the Yaris.
I put it in before I had actually gone through the list. I was just like, oh, we really need a list.
Teach you.
That's interesting. So that's in there. But do you know the other one I'm going to choose from here? Because there's lots of them. I just wanted to make sure that you all knew I'd seen the Yaris, and that was just a default. The original BMW X5 came up in conversation last night with someone whilst you lot were all asleep on Twitter. Do you know the current X3 is 2 inches longer than the original X5 was? But whenever you see an original X5 that's not necessarily in sport trim, that doesn't necessarily have tinted windows, that's not covered in crud, and that's in really good condition, you think, that is a darn good looking thing.
Well, that was in the Bangle list last week as well. And it does, I've seen a couple that have been unmolested and have not been put in drug dealer spec.
Yeah.
And they do look quite smart.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, it's nice, clean lines, not too big, lots of glass, clear glass as well.
To get the lens, I was being lazy and going to Wikipedia because, of course, that's always correct. And it was just that there's a list of people and the designers listed under designers on there. And it's just like, well, that's, no wonder it's a handsome looking car. By the time you've got Frank Stevenson, Chris Bangle, another couple, and you just think, yeah, okay, now that makes sense. But just now compared to some of I saw an XM on the road the other week.
Thoughts and prayers, Alan. Thoughts and prayers.
And once I'd stopped vomiting, and you just think, and I've seen pictures of the new X3 as well, and you just think, what the heck are they smoking? Because they used to produce stuff like this. Yeah. Anyway, any from you?
Yes, actually. I'm going to pick the Porsche 911 996 GT3 and then take it and resto mod it into some. No, I'm not going to do that. But I do like the 911 996.
So why did the podcast end? Well, Andrew decided he was going to build a resto mod.
No, I'll just take that one that's in the picture as it is. Thank you very much. And that is slide 16 for those following along at home. No, 17, actually.
God, those who can count.
Yes.
And finally this week, Citroën is closing its conservatoire. The good things about Stellantis is how well they can use different models. Bad things about Stellantis, they do seem to be shutting down all the historic stuff.
Well, it is the yin and yang of your CEO walking around with a hammer that is called cost cutting.
Yes. It is. I mean, they've closed like C42 Paris on the Champs-Élysées, and they're now looking at closing the Conservatoire, the Citroën Museum, much in the same way as looking at closing the Fiat Museum in Turin. No mention about L'Aventure Peugeot Sochaux and its survival, but I think it's more of a museum and less of a big shed with cars in, I think, than the others. I'm hoping that they'll end up consolidated somewhere, because that would be cool.
Yeah, could you imagine the world of Stellantis, like Volvo have done?
Yeah. That would be quite cool, actually.
Think of all the brands.
Can you imagine how much fighting there'd be over where it's going to be, though?
You put it in Geneva.
Yeah, I know. It's the only solution, isn't it? Anyway, Ian Seabrook made a trip, an expedition there and back again.
If Ian's listening to this...
An expedition there and back again. So it's only fair that he gets 2 videos out of it. They're both listed in the show notes. Obviously, they're both on his Hobnot channel. And he's got one of which is a top 10, and the other one is a wander around almost the whole place, which is 29 minutes worth. but then he skips over the ones that are in the top 10, so really you should watch both of them.
The top 10 will be linked first, so click the first link in the show notes to watch that one.
Awesome stuff, really interesting. Ian, as usual, so enthusiastic, passionate, all those other things, which make his stuff a joy to watch, really.
Yeah.
Actually, lots of watching this week. I think we've given you about 3 hours worth of YouTube watching in total in this one. But it's a cracker, so really do. Please click through, do it, support awesome independent creators.
Yep.
Anything I've forgotten, Andrew?
No, I think we've got angry enough this week.
We've covered absolutely everything.
We can close off now.
Excellent. And with that being the case, don't forget that between now and next week, you can give us any feedback and share your thoughts with the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Remember, you can support us financially via Patreon. And please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is if you search for Crack Windscreen on Twitter or Mastodon, or if you are on LinkedIn, I am there under my actual proper name. Alan, if people would like to get in touch with you and send sympathies and hugs for how much of a problem you've had with your tech today, what's the best way for them to do that personally?
I'm always up for a hug. Best way to do that is via Twitter or basically any of the social medias used by the over 35s, where I'm at AJP Bradley. That's Bradley. We'll be back very soon, but until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.